Hey guys, this is Pimpin' Donks making you another video on poker strategy. This time we're going to look at bubble play and specifically for multi-table sit and goes for 45 player sit and goes where the final six get paid on full tilt. As far as I know, there's never been a video done like this before. In fact, I had to create a custom uh, structure here in Sit and Go Power Tools to be able to look at some of the numbers and analyze what hands we should be shoving or calling all ins with when we get to the bubble in the 45 player sit and goes. And it is a very significant bubble. For example, in the $75 45 player sit and goes, the bubble, if you make it into the money, is over 150 bucks. So that's two buy-ins, which is not a normal bubble. Most bubbles are for a buy-in or slightly over a buy-in. So it is a pretty big bubble, and you do want to play for the win. But when you are short stacked, sometimes it is the right play to just try and sneak it into the money. And we're going to look at examples of all those situations. And uh, again, I feel pretty happy to be doing this because I don't think there's ever been a video done like this before for 45 players sit and goes. So it's groundbreaking stuff. I just got this new structure loaded into this sit and go power tools. We're going to be using poker stove as well for this video. And I think it's going to be pretty interesting. And if you play multi-table sit and goes, you're definitely going to increase your profit by watching this video. So when you're done, you may want to watch it again also. So we're gonna jump into the first hand. We're gonna try and fit in as many hands as usual, and obviously get as much information to you as I can. So with this first hand, a few things. First, we're gonna be looking at $75 45 player sit and goes. It really doesn't matter what the buy-in is. I just use that because that's the highest one. We're looking at the final table only before you get into the money. This first example is for 7 players. We may look at some examples for 8 players, 9 players, etc. Um, Final table before you get into the money. With this first hand, um, we have a 7 players, and we're in the small blind, and we have a pretty good chip stack with over 10,000 chips. And the big blind is 400, and we're in the small blind for 200, and we have the short stack, who obviously is trying to hang out to make it to the money, and it folds around to us, and we have the almighty 6-3 offsuit hand. So we need to decide basically, are we going to put the short stack all in, or are we going to fold and give them a walk? With all these calculations that we use, we're using a minimum edge of 0.3%. Um, and there's other little things that you can tinker around with this. I'm not going to go into all the details. I'm just trying to make it as easy for you as possible. So we need to ask ourselves first, what hands do we think the short stack will call our all in with? So if I was in his position, I was thinking about it, and I estimated that with this hand range, um, all the hands in yellow are roughly about the hands that I would probably be calling here with if I was in his shoes. And with no other information on this player, again, we can get more specific with stats on your HUD. If this is a loose player or a tight player, that might influence you. If he's a tight player, you might shove on him a little more. If he's a loose player, you might not shove as much because he's more likely to call. Um, so there are other factors that are going to influence the decision. Has he just lost a big pot? Is he on tilt, which makes him more likely to call? We're not going to look at all those things. We're looking at, in general, what is the best play to do. So here on the bubble of this 45 player sit and go, I estimate he's going to be calling with about 47% of hands. And this is a reasonable range. He's calling with any ace, any pair, um, kings, all kings suited, most queens suited. So again, this is a pretty reasonable range to call here with, I think. and we are shoving with 6-3 offsuit. If we do decide to do that, we want to look at if it's a profitable play to do that, with him calling with 47% here. So we push this compute button and we find out that it's actually minus EV to shove 6-3 offsuit here. It's minus 0.2%. At this buy-in level, it's going to cost me $1.10 for making this shove. Now, I'm suspecting that a lot of you probably thought we should shove here because we want to keep the pressure on the short stack. But again, if we double him up, he's going to have close to 6,000 chips. We'll be right back in it, and we're going to be down to roughly 7,000. So it's, again, we're preserving chips, and getting into the money is a huge influence on this. And I put in the structure of 5%. It's exactly how it is on full tilt. 5% goes to the sixth place player. 38% I believe goes to the first place, and everything in between. So with all that factored in, this is a minus EV shove. Um, it's not by a lot. Again, if this were a tight player in the big blind, this could become a plus EV shove, um, which means basically you should be shoving any two cards if this is a tight player and he's just, maybe he normally plays the $11 buy-in and you can see he's kind of scared money. Maybe you can force him to fold out more often here. So if that is the case, then I think it would be a shove, but it's pretty close. So we need to ask ourselves then, if this is a minus EV shove, what hand should we be shoving in this situation? We can figure that out by pushing compute all. And we find that we should be shoving 25.6% of hands. Any pair down to threes, any ace, king 9 offsuit, king 8 suited, and queen 10 suited. So what that means is all those hands are the lowest, and everything above that you would shove as well. So let's look at this range of hands on Poker Stove so you can see what it looks like. So we're going to shove 25.6. Alright, so everything in purple now is the hands that we're shoving roughly. Again, it doesn't come out exactly down to threes because of the rounding and other factors, but this is roughly the hands that we should be shoving. So this is very critical to your return on investment and the money that you make at the poker table. So these decisions that you make around the bubble are hugely important. So hopefully this will help you with that. So let's look again. It's the same situation. Let's change the situation though to us being the short stack, and let's change it this time to a more typical situation. The big stack is raising enough to basically put us all in. The big stack at this point is going to be putting on, especially with him being in the cutoff, he's going to be bullying and just trying to steal the blinds a lot. And he's going to be doing this when we're in the big blind, so we need to know what hands we should be calling with. So the big stack is going to be looser than usual, I would assume, attempting to steal blinds. So what range of hands do you think that we are going to be that we're going to put him on? It's tough to say. Again, it depends on a tight or loose player, but raising here with he's going to be raising any pair, twos included, I would assume. Ace deuce, ace 3 offsuit. Let's scroll over here. King jack, queen jack suited. Looks like a pretty tight range, actually. I think he's going to be raising a few more hands here with suited connectors and whatnot. So let's expand this a little bit. These numbers here, 1, 2, 3, 4, if you haven't seen the previous bubble strategy video, these are presets that you can fill in. Number 1 is the tightest. So you can see 6s, ace 10 suited, and ace jack, that's it. So 2 is a little looser and 4 is the loosest. So I think he's going to be stealing here with quite a wide range. This looks pretty good. It has some suited connectors in it, and it looks like a pretty reasonable range here. So against this range, let's not even look at a specific hand. Let's look at what hands we should call with, given the fact that he's stealing so wide. So we push compute all. We should call only with 13.9% of hands, which is kind of surprising to me. But again, when you're on the bubble, anything can happen. There could be two big stacks that go at it on the next hand with pocket aces and pocket kings, and one of them bubbles out. So you never know what could happen. Two big hands could run into each other, and that again illustrates the importance of folding here quite often when you don't have a strong hand. So with this range, 13.9%, let's go ahead and take a look at that. 13.9. So again, this is because of rounding and other factors, it doesn't come out exactly, but it says to go down to pocket fives. If I were in this situation, I think I would have a hard time folding pocket fours. I would probably call with pocket fours. I could find a fold easily with twos and threes even, but pocket fours, you're going to have a lot of his aces and smaller pairs dominated, and so I would probably call there with pocket fours, but this says it's profitable to call with pocket fives, ace 8 offsuit, ace 7 suited, and king queen off, and king 10 suited, and obviously everything above that stronger. So as we go through more hands in this video, I want you guys to be asking yourself, what would you do if you were in this situation? And also try and remember, you want to become a good estimator when you get down to the final table as far as estimating what hand ranges you should be pushing. Should I be pushing 40% here? Should I be pushing 80% of my hands here? Should I be calling with 30% here? Those are the things that you want to get good at when you get to the final table, and this video will help you do that. So I'm gonna pause the video to set up the next hand, and we will move on to that. So I gotta get that up here. Alright guys, for this next example, again it's $75, 45 player sit and go. The numbers have all changed. I'm getting these numbers from hands that I've played on my poker tracker at 45 player sit and goes when we're on the bubble. So again, we have 7 players. This time the blinds are 300 and 600, and we're on the button with a medium stack of 8,000, and it folds around to us, and we have Jack 10 suited, and we have both of the short stacks in the blinds, so they're going to be calling us a little wider than normal, but not significant, because they do want to wait for the other one to bust out. So we again ask ourselves, what hands will they call us with? And I put the small blind on a slightly looser range because he has less chips, so he therefore has more incentive to gamble. I think he's going to be calling with any pair down to threes, any suited ace, ace 3 offsuit, etc., etc. It's basically this number 3, but a little looser. And I think this number, this big blind, because he has more chips, has more incentive to fold all of his more marginal type hands. So I put him on a tighter range. Again, you could debate what range they're going to call with, but I think this is pretty reasonable. So we have Jack 10 offsuit, and our option at this point, because we have more than 10 big blinds, but our opponents do not, our raise size should be all in or fold pretty much at this point. You could make a small raise here and fold to a shove, but then you're getting pretty good odds to call. Against the range of hands that they're going to be shoving, you might as well just shove yourself. So here we are either shoving or folding, and we want to know if it's profitable to shove Jack 10 suited here. So hopefully you've decided what you would do in this situation. Now let's go ahead and figure it out by pushing compute, and we can see it is a plus, slightly plus EV shove of 0.1%. Pick up, or you pick up also when you do this, 93 cents when you make this shove. So again, because of the fold equity, both players want to wait out till the other one busts, and the other factors I think point towards shoving this as well. And it's a hand that's not going to be dominated too often when you're called. So I think it is plus EV here. Um, Again, when we're in this situation, let's take a look at what range of hands we should be shoving here. We should be shoving actually a pretty tight range here. It says only roughly 11% of hands. And again, when it's this close to the Jack 10 suited, you could do either play, but I would prefer to shove here because of the other factors that I've mentioned. They're going to be reluctant to call because they want to make the money. They are basically waiting for the other person to go out so you can kind of grind them down a bit. And it is important to be playing for the win when you have a medium to big stack. If I was one of these short stacks, I would be more likely to just play to try and make the cash. But when you have a decent chance at winning, you should play for the win because you'll make more money in the long run doing that. So 11% of hands here is a pretty tight range. I would probably be shoving more than this, again because of the factors I mentioned, but this is what it is immediately profitable to do according to Sit Go Power Tools here. So we'll move on to the next hand. Alright guys, I'm keeping all the numbers the same and changing a few things around. Again, we're at 300, 600 big blind. We're in the small blind this time, and it folds around to us. We're the short stack at the table, and we have the next shortest stack in the big blind. And our hand is 3-2 offsuit. So we have one of the worst hands that we could be possibly dealt, and we're on the bubble, and we have a decision here to either fold or shove all in. So go ahead and take a minute to think about what you would do. And then let's figure out what the best play is. Here we need to put our opponent on a calling range. I suspect because we are the shortest stacks, he's going to be calling with a slightly wider range than we did last time, and he knows that we're going to be shoving a lot of hands here because we're just looking to force him to fold so much of the time. He's going to put us on a wide range of hands, so he's going to call a little wider. So we'll try this number 4. Any pair, pretty much any ace. I think this is a little too tight. Let me see what a range of 30% looks like here. Nope, that's not wide enough. 40 is pretty close. Let's try 42. This looks pretty, maybe 45. Yeah, 45 includes any ace, king 2 suited. So let's try a range of 45%. And again, one of the nice things about this program is you can just type in 45% and it will do the math for you. So we got everything set here. We push compute, and we can see that this is a minus EV shove of 1.1%, which may be surprising to some of you. Some of you may have thought in your head that you'd be shoving here, even with 3 deuce offsuit. It's pretty close. This is a pretty significant EV difference. Let's take a look at a hand slightly stronger. Let's say 6-5 suited, and let's see if that changes anything. It does go up slightly, but it's still not strong enough. So let's do a little bit stronger. Let's say Queen 9 suited. Alright, it becomes a plus EV play there to shove with Queen 9 suited. So again, you can kind of get a feel for the ranges that you should be shoving in these situations. And again, you have to ask yourself, is this a good calling range? Is 45% with in the big blind? Well, if I were in the big blind, I would be calling with any ace, any pair, pretty much any king, except some of these garbage offsuit kings here I may fold. Again, I think this is a pretty accurate range. So if it is accurate, we can push compute all and figure out what hands we should be shoving from the small blind here. And it turns out we should be shoving almost 22% of hands. Um, Again, I think this is a little tight. I would be shoving pocket twos here. Um, I would shove any ace, even ace two offsuit. So this is a little tight, but again, that's what it's profitable to do at this point in the sit and go. I would be a little more aggressive than this, but uh, that's my personal preference. Um, this is what it indicates is profitable to do, though. So maybe I should tighten up my pushing ranges here a little. Again, we do have we're not completely desperate. If I pull up a calculator here and figure out exactly, we have almost 7.5 big blinds, so we're not in a terrible shape. So we do have some time to wait. And again, the longer you wait, the more chances that two big hands will run into each other and the bubble will burst that way as well. So 22% of hands is kind of surprising to me. Sorry about that. My phone is ringing. Um, it's I thought it would be wider than this, but so obviously I need to tighten that up as well. So let's move on to the next hand. Alright guys, here's another hand that I played. I found it on my poker tracker, so I'm just going to quickly show it. You can see I have Jack 4 offsuit, and this is again a $75 sit and go. We're on the bubble. There's 7 players, and it folds around to me in the small blind. You can see we have a pretty good stack here, and there is a short stack on the button who has less chips than the person in the big blind. So I suspect that the person in the big blind is going to be folding quite often here because the other player is almost going to be all in with the next time they get into the big blind. So um, I would estimate that this person is folding way more than they should based on their stack size to just try and get into the money. So with Jack 4 offsuit here, hopefully you've thought about what you would do. I went ahead and shoved it and the player folded. So we want to take a look at numbers on this. I've entered all the amounts. You can see the big blind is 1,000 now. We're in the small blind. Again, this 45% is a reasonable range to assume for somebody who is calling with approximately the right range here, but this person I think is not going to because of the other short stack in the tournament. I think they're going to be much tighter than this. I would estimate so 25% sounds pretty reasonable, maybe a little looser. 27, we'll try 27% and see what it's see if it's profitable to shove Jack 4 offsuit here. So we compute and it comes out to be a plus 0.9%. I make $5.86 from this shove. So it is profitable. We can look at the range of hands we should be shoving here. I suspect is pretty wide. We'll go ahead and push compute all. And we in fact should be shoving 100% of hands here. So I didn't think it's quite that wide, but so this is a situation where we shove any 2 cards from the small blind. And what makes it that? The thing that makes it that is the other short stack in the tournament, gives this person strong incentive to fold. And even when he does call, we obviously have suck out equity as well, and it's not going to hurt our stack too much if he does call. So I like I like the play to shove here, and I guess it is any two cards in this situation. So um, I think that's it for that one. We'll move on to the next hand. Alright guys, I decided before we move on to the next one, let's take a look. It'll be kind of interesting to see if we were in this player's shoes in the big blind, what exactly we would be, let me fix this, what we would be calling with. So we're going to put this player, we know it's profitable to shove 100% of hands, so we're going to say that this player shoves 100% of hands, and what hands we should call with if we're in the big blind. So we compute all, and it turns out we should actually be calling with 50% of hands. Again, that seems a little wider than I would call with there, but um, that's what the profit comes out to. So if we know for a fact our opponent is, and that again assumes we know for a fact that our opponent is shoving 100% of hands. If you don't know that for a fact, then you need to tighten this range up. So we call with any pair, and you can see 50%. Suited connectors are good hands to call here with, because they're going to have good equity against most hands. So it's, again, kind of surprising to me. You learn something new every day, and I'm glad I'm doing this for you guys, because I'm picking up some new information as well. So calling with 50% here is a profitable play. Alright guys, this next situation is pretty difficult. Um, so let's go over it. We have this time 8 players left, so we're still at the final table, but one away from the bubble. Our hand is pocket fives, and we're positioned at the cutoff +1, so we have to get through 4 other players, and we have pretty short stack, but there are a couple stacks in the blinds that are very short stacked and pretty desperate at this point. So we have a pretty strong hand. It folds around to us, and we do have a couple bigger stacks behind us that can bust us as well. So again, this is a pretty tough spot, and it's a common spot though. You have a decent hand with pocket fives here, and it folds around to you. What do you do? um, so we have all the information entered here. The ranges that I assigned to the players. First of all, in the big blind, I think he's going to be calling reasonably tight with um, decent hands, because he doesn't want to. He needs to gamble, but he doesn't want to take any unnecessary risk with mediocre hands. The small blind, on the other hand, only has just over one big blind so left, so he's going to be calling much wider. I've assigned a 40% range to him, which includes just about any ace, any pair down to fours, and a bunch of other hands that you can see here in purple. The big stack, I think, again, is going to be calling with the same range roughly as the big blind, because he has the chips to gamble, and he wants to knock me out, obviously, to get to the money and increase his chip stack. The cutoff, on the other hand, because he has less chips, he has less reason to gamble. He just wants to kind of make it to the money. If he picks up a big hand, he'll call me. So pocket tens, ace queen suited, and ace king offsuit, I think is pretty reasonable there. So with pocket fives, we compute the EV, and we come out to plus $1.30. profit for shoving pocket fives here. And you guys, I'm not giving you like obvious examples when we do this, like do you shove ace king suited here, because obviously the profit on that, or do you shove pocket queens. If we look at, obviously, pocket queens are going to have a massive, much more EV here. You can see plus $7.78 just for that shove. So I'm looking to give you guys examples that are challenging and will make you think. And here with pocket fives, you can see it's just barely plus EV. The other factors included, though, with the fold equity, when you double up, you have a much better chance of winning the tournament, and um, you have the suck out equity as well. And a lot of times when you get called, you'll be in a coin flip with two overcards. So with all those factors considered, I think shoving is the best play here. Um, the range of hands that we should be shoving when we're in a situation like this, it's situations like this that you're going to find yourself in quite often, and they're difficult decisions sometimes when you have less than 10 big blinds, so your only play is shove or fold, and you have a couple other shorter stacks at your table that you would like to see bust before you get into the money. Do you shove a hand like pocket fives here? And we're going to take a look at what hands we should be shoving here. It turns out to be roughly 9.5%. So pocket fives are right on the edge of what we should be shoving here. Um, so pocket six is up, ace 10 offsuit, ace 9 suited, and king queen suited. So looks like a pretty reasonable range of what I would expect to shove here. So I feel pretty comfortable with this. Again, it's a tough spot, but I think it's a shove. So we'll move on to the next hand. Alright guys, for the next hand we're keeping everything the same except we move from the cutoff +1, so we have to get through 4 players, to the cutoff +4, so we have to get through all 7 players. So we're basically under the gun. We have a similar chips stack, and again we'll say pocket fives here. The range of hands that we're going to assign to these players, I think this guy now is going to be calling us pretty tight because he has a strong incentive to fold. The big stack again will be calling similar to this guy on the button, and this guy I think is going to be calling pretty tight as well because he has to get through a lot of players. So with pocket fives it was barely profitable last time, so I'm suspecting that from here, with having to get through 7 players, it's even going to be less profit. It's probably minus EV to shove here now. I haven't figured it out yet, so I'm going to go ahead and push compute, and it is minus EV to shove because you have to get through more players. So what hands should we be shoving here? Push compute all. Okay, so we should be shoving pocket tens, ace king, and ace queen suited. Only 3.8% of hands. So that's roughly about what I would expect in this situation because you have the 2 short stacks in the blinds that are likely to bust out soon. You need a strong hand to get through 7 players here. So I feel again very comfortable with this. This is almost exactly what I would be shoving here. So I feel that my play in these situations is almost spot on as compared to some of the other situations where we were supposed to call with 50% of hands. That one, I am not so sure if I would be calling with some of those hands there. Um, but we've already talked about that examples. In this example here, I think this is a spot on range of hands to be calling with here. So we'll move on to the next example. Alright guys, for this next example, again we're back down to 7 players, so we're right on the bubble. The big blind is 600 and we are on the button and it's folded around to us and we have 8-5 offsuit. And you can see we're the shortest stack at the table. We have roughly a little less than 6 big blinds, and the big stacks are in the small blind and big blind, so they might call us a little wider than usual because they have chips to gamble with. Um, Although it depends on the player, but I've assigned a range of the number 3 preset, pocket fours, etc., etc. You can see both of them the same range because they both roughly have similar chip stack size. Um, so with 8-5 offsuit here, go ahead and take a minute and think about what you would do here, being on the button and it's folded to you, and you're on the bubble and you're the short stack. So we're going to go ahead and push compute. I'm guessing that this is a shove because this is we're the short stack. We have to take a gamble. We've only got a little over six big blind, or a little less than 6 big blinds. So I think this is probably a shove. It is slightly plus EV, $1.05 profit from making this shove, and it is pretty close though. So 8-5 offsuit is connected and can make a straight, but um, it is pretty close. It's not a huge mistake to fold it here, but I think I would shove here. It is also the type of hand that is not going to be dominated very often, except by like ace 8 or ace 5 or higher pocket pairs. But 8-5 is usually going to have 2 clean outs when you get called by ace king, ace queen, etc. What range of hands should we be pushing in this situation when we're on the button here and we're the short stack? We push compute all and it says we should be shoving roughly 41% of hands. So that's any pair, any ace, and you guys can read all of these. A lot of suited connectors in here, and that's exactly what I would estimate I would be pushing here as well. So I feel pretty comfortable with this. This is almost spot on. And you know, we can try a couple other hands here. Like, should we push? Oh, let's try 5-4 offsuit. Let's see. That is slightly plus EV as well. How about 5 deuce offsuit? And that is barely profitable. It's getting a little more marginal though. So you can see we can push a pretty wide range here and still show a profit. Um, the exact range that it gives us is roughly 41%. And there are these marginal hands that don't meet the minimum edge percent requirement, but are still slightly profitable, and you can push some of those hands as well. So again, I think it's a pretty good example. It shows you how wide you got to push when you're the short stack on the bubble and it's folded around to you. It's extremely important information to increase your ROI. So we're going to try and get a couple more hands in before we end the video, and we'll move on to the next one right away. Alright guys, another difficult situation. This time we are in the big blind and we are the big stack. I left all the numbers the same for this one, except we're the big blind now, and the cutoff +1 has shoved all in for 5,292 chips. He has less than 10 big blinds. However, he has to get through 4 people, and there is a short stack with less than him on the bubble. So he's taken quite a chance here, shoving into bigger stacks, and he has to get through quite a few people. So I'm guessing that he's going to have a pretty strong hand here to do this. I'm estimating 9% of hands. What does a 9% range look like? This is what a 9% range looks like. It's pocket eights and up, ace jack offsuit, ace 10 suited, king 10 suited, and king queen offsuit. So pretty strong hands here. And by the way, just as a side note, when you guys have people who 3-bet you 9% of the time, these are roughly the range of hands you can assign to them. They will have some bluffs in there with other random hands, but this is roughly what you can assign them to. But as far as this hand goes, so I'm putting him on a 9% range, and we have pocket sevens. Um, it's a strong hand, and it's in the big blind, so we're getting a discount for calling. Um, we can eliminate them. We can get into the money if we call. So all those factors considered, I think it's still a fold, and here's why. Um, Pocket sevens is a marginal hand in the spot against the 9% range. You can see pocket sevens is actually below. Now we're not going to know exactly he's going to have 9% range, but I, I wouldn't call here with pocket sevens because I know he's going to all of his pairs are going to be higher than sevens, and I'm going to be coin flipping with him the other times. So I'm basically just hoping for a coin flip, and I'll be dominated the other times that I'm not coin flipping. So I would lean towards a fold. And if we compute it, all right, it comes out to a minus 0.3%. You lose $1.74 for making this call here, and I think it's a call that a lot of people would make, and probably some of you said that you would call here, and it's not a humongous mistake, but I think it is a mistake. Um, you really need a pretty strong hand to call this guy's all in with because he's taking such a risk against getting through 4 players, and he has a shorter stack who could bust out before him. So he's going to have a strong hand here. What hands should we call here with against a player like this? It's going to be a pretty tight range, only 3.5% of hands, and that might be a little too tight. I would be calling here definitely, but again, this is with the minimum edge of 0.3%. You can lower this in sit and go power tools to 0.2 or zero point 0.1, but for me to call in all in, I want a pretty significant edge usually. In this case, if I ask myself would I call here with pocket nines, I would call here with pocket nines. Pocket eights is really on the fence, the cutoff for me. It would depend if this is a loose player or a tight player and other factors. I would have a hard time folding ace queen here. I think I would be snap calling with ace queen. But again, according to this, that's a mistake, but that is with the minimum edge of zero point 0.3. So I think this is a little tight. I think you could throw ace queen in there and it would be profitable. The majority of the time depends on the player. But when this happens, though, I see people routinely call, and especially weaker type players will call with king queen, king jack, just because they have a big stack and they have chips to gamble with and they want to end the bubble. They're not comfortable being on the bubble. And they also want to try and punish this player for taking such a risk against them when there's a shorter stack. So they feel they need to punish this player for doing that. And they'll call, with much weaker hands than they should. And obviously that's why they're not making as much money as they could be. But that's another story. So for you and everyone watching the video, we should be folding pocket sevens here to a player with this type of range. So I think it's pretty interesting hand to look at, and we'll move on to the next one. All right, guys. This is going to be the final hand of the video, and I think it's a very difficult hand, and it's a situation that you're going to be faced with at the final table. So let's dive in. We have high blinds. The big blind is 1,000. There's 7 players left again, and we're in the small blind, and we have ace 9 offsuit, and it's folded around to the button who has more chips than us. He has less than 10 big blinds though, and he shoves all in, to put me and the short stack left at the table all in as well. So we have to again assign a range to the button, what hands we think he's doing this with. Um, he, First of all, I think he's going to have a little better than average shoving hand here because of the fact that the short stack is in the big blind. He knows that the short stack is going to be calling quite often here, so he needs to have somewhat of a reasonable hand to be shoving here. But he still wants to be aggressive and just steal the blinds here, and so he's going to have a wide range. So I assigned him to roughly any pair, any ace, the number 4 preset, which includes some suited connectors you can see down to 9-8 suited. So again, it's never we're never going to get the range exactly correct, but this is pretty reasonable. So we have over 7,000 chips here, and there is another stack with 7,000. So we're not in horrible shape here. So we definitely don't need to call this if we think we're behind. But we do have a pretty strong hand here. Ace 9 offsuit against the button's opening range is typically going to be ahead of it. But we need to ask ourselves, is it worth it to make the call here, given the fact that the short stack is probably going to go out before us if we fold? So go ahead and take a minute and decide what you would do here. Um, Again, I think it's pretty close and it's pretty tough, but I think for me, I would fold in this situation, and here's why. With Ace 9 offsuit, it's not a hand that can make a straight like Ace 5 or Ace 10 or Ace Jack or Ace 2. So you can't, that's taken away from it. The 9 is a decent kicker compared to the other aces that he's going to be shoving. So we will have him dominated sometimes, but he's going to have us dominated sometimes as well. So um, the fact is, we don't need to make the call here because we can just wait until the short stack busts out. If I had slightly stronger here, Ace 10, Ace Jack, I think I would be calling here, but Ace 9 is just, it's kind of the cutoff point where it's a little too weak for me to call here. So I'm going to push the compute button, and we can see it is minus $5.36 to call here, given this range of hands that he's shoving. Uh, and that's again just because you're risking your tournament life before you're in the money when you could wait for this short stack to bust. And with the 2 buy-in bubble, I'm going to be folding Ace 9 offsuit here. So if we are in this situation or a similar situation to it, because there's never two exact situations in poker that are exactly alike, um, what hand should we be calling this guy's all in with? And it turns out we're going to need a pretty strong hand here to call pocket 9s and up, Ace Queen offsuit, and Ace Jack suited. And again, I said Ace Jack would be about my Ace 10. Ace 10 suited, I think I would call. Let's change this hand to Ace 10 suited and see if it turns to plus. Alright, it is slightly plus with the making it Ace 10 suited. So I think my range is pretty good there. And again, I hate to give away all my secrets to you guys, but this helps me as well doing these analysis and making these videos for you guys. So if you guys like the video and you like the bubble play video, I can do more of these on other multi-table sit and goes like the 90 player ones or 18 player ones or 27 player ones. Or if you like the 45 man and you want more hands of this, you can leave comments in the forums uh, that you want me to make more of these videos. Let me know what you guys think. I definitely think this will help your game. So let me know. I am Pimpin' Donks, and I will see you at the tables.